Welcome to this third tutorial in my Lightroom series, and today we're going to look at importing in a lot more detail. We did gloss over it in the second tutorial, but in this one we're going to look at the different options for how you can import files into the catalogue. One of the first things we probably want to import are files that already exist on our filing system, and this is really easy to do. What I can do is I can right click in my catalogue in the folder I want to import into and do import to this folder. That brings up the standard import dialog, and I can browse to where my pictures currently are, places, and I'm just going to import this Scotland file, and I don't want to move them or anything, I just want to add them to the catalogue. So I click on add and then on import, and you'll see those files have now been added into the catalogue. I can actually bring in a whole group of folders in one go. So if I go back to photos, I'm going to import to photos at the top level this time. Right click, import to this folder, and this time I'm going to select a whole group of files, and you can see this include subfolders is checked. If that's not checked, check that. Again, click on add and import. And there we see the main folder models, and all of the subfolders have been imported as well. I can use a similar technique if I've got pictures on a memory card or still on my camera. It's slightly different this time. What we're going to do, I've got a card which has got some pictures of a place called Scotland Castle. So I'm going to create a folder inside Places and call it Scotland Castle. Create, and you'll see the empty folder. If I now right click on this folder and import, this time I have my memory card and my photos, and you'll see that it's defaulted to copy this time because we want to copy the pictures off of the memory card into the new location. Once that's selected, we can click on import, and our pictures have now been copied from the memory card into this folder. And if you remember, we can do show in Finder or Explorer on Windows, and you'll see those files are now in that folder structure. When we're importing existing pictures in our filing system, we might want to move them at the time we're importing them. Maybe we're tidying our filing system up. We can do that using the Move Import option. If we click on Import this time, and you'll see up here we've selected Move, and the files that I want to import are currently sitting in this local folder. They're the ones I want to import. This time though, I need to tell Lightroom where I want to put them in my catalogue, and we can come over here. We're off for source for area, source panel, and we're going to come over to the destination panel, and down here we've got this destination option. And I can say I want to put them into a folder called local, and that folder is going to sit in my photos collection in Places. If I click on import, you can now see that this local folder has been created. If I pop out to Finder or Explorer, if I click in local, you'll see the files are there. If I was to actually come up to photos, this is where they used to be in local, and you'll see that directory is now empty. Let's have a look at some of the other import options when we're copying files from maybe a memory card or another location. I'm going to click on Import. This time you'll see my cards here. I've actually added a second folder. That means some of the images on the card have already been copied in when we did our previous import, and Lightroom shows us those. They're greyed out here. And then these new files that haven't been copied across yet, I can tell Lightroom to only show me the new photos by clicking on the new photos option at the top here. And then we've just got the new ones, the grey ones, have now been removed. Over here on the import settings, you'll see there's this don't import suspected duplicates. If we were to turn that off and click back on all photos, Lightroom would import all of the photos on the card again, and it would create second copies of any existing ones. But we don't really want to do that, so we'll check that and go back to new photos. We've selected the photos. Now we need to tell Lightroom where we want to put them. So again, over here on the right hand side, we've got our destination options, and I can come down and say that I want to put them into the existing Scotney Castle folder. Notice how this local folder has been created underneath Scotney Castle, and that's because up here we've said we want to put them into a subfolder, so we need to uncheck that, and now it will put it into the correct place. Incidentally, if we was to change into one folder to by original folders, you'll see we'll get the breakdown of the folders that are on our actual memory card. It will duplicate that folder structure across, so be mindful of that. You want it as into one folder, and we import them. And now we can see them all, 27 pictures in that one folder. Let's just take a look at some of those other options in the destination and file handling side. We've not really discussed them. First thing is the build previews. We will talk about previews in a later tutorial. For now we can leave that as minimal, but there are a number of different styles of preview we can generate, and we'll talk about what they're for. There's also this option to build smart previews, which are more previews with a little bit more intelligence built into them. Again, we will discuss that when we talk about previews. Don't import suspected duplicates, we've discussed already. We also have an option, if we want to, when we're importing it, to copy the files to a separate location. So maybe you have a backup drive. So if you tick that, it will then ask you where you want to put them, just by clicking on it. We will talk about collections in the later tutorials as well, but we have the option to add it into what they call a collection, or the files into a collection. There's also the option to rename the files as we're importing them, and there's a number of things we can do. There's different templates we can set up, and we will look at file renaming at a little later stage. Develop settings down here apply during import. We could apply things like presets, so different styles as we're importing them. I don't recommend doing that unless you definitely know you want to put a certain style onto it, and we can add certain keywords and other metadata by default as we're importing it. We need to be a little bit careful doing that, and when we look at keywords we'll see why. I've just reinserted my memory card to show another option when we're importing files, and just to fool it, we're going to turn off this don't import suspected duplicates. These files we've already imported, but there is the option that we looked at earlier for into one folder or by original folders, which mimics our file structure when we're importing down here. But when that is set to by original folders, up here we can also use this destination folders option, and that actually just groups the photos by the folders that are on the memory card. It's just to demonstrate how that destination folders works, because you might not want to import all of them. Also, if we select by date, what Lightroom will actually do is it will import the photos, but it will create subfolders for each particular day. You can see that down here under our Scotney Castle folder, how it's created, or is going to attempt to create that additional folder. You can also specify the format of the date. There's a number of preset templates that you can use for your date format. And lastly, on importing, there's this option to copy as DNG, and what that will actually do is it works exactly the same as copy in terms of where you pick your source files from, where you want the destination to be, but when it copies them across, it will convert them on the fly to the Adobe DNG RAW format. Personally, I prefer to use camera's native RAW files, but some people like to have consistency and may store all of their RAW files as DNG files. Depends really what you're going to do with the raw files, what you're going to edit them in afterwards. But it is there as an option. One advantage of DNG files is that they tend to be a lot smaller than native raw files, so that may be a reason for using it. So in summary, there are a number of ways that we can import. We can just add files from wherever their current location is. We can do that either by single folder or a group of folders, as we looked at. We can copy files from things like memory cards or from maybe another USB drive, external drive. We can move files so that we can actually put them into a new place within the catalogue as we import them. And we have the ability to copy files across and convert them to Adobe's native DNG raw format. So hopefully that gives you some insight into how you can get your photos into your catalogue, depending on where they are. In the next tutorial, we'll look how we can organise our images so they're a little bit easier for us to find. Thanks for watching.